Okay, so now we've created our master pages. We've gone and opened up our mood board in Illustrator. We've copied and pasted all of that in here. Now I have opened up my resume file, which was done in InDesign, and you should have all of your paragraph styles all set in there. So I'm going to open up the paragraph window. So I have opened up my resume, copied, and I'm going to paste right now. And I want you to look at the paragraph styles. As I paste, it has retained all of the paragraph styles and put them in here. You can also, if you've created a document and you want to grab the paragraph styles, you can go and say load paragraph styles, and you click that button and it will let you browse to another file and you can adopt those styles, okay? So here I have my resume put in here, so I am going to move it over, and I've got these new guidelines, so I'm going to be adjusting things so that each page, it's important that each page be consistent, and on each page you're going to use the same header. So I'm moving this up in here, and I am going to look at this page, and I think I really want to make it feel more integrated because I've got everything. It feels like a left-handed page, which is what it started to do. So there are simple things that I can do. I'm going to get rid of that piece right there. And then this line here, I'm going to close up this box here for a moment. Sorry, I thought that was the text box. It wasn't. So there's my text box. I'm going to close up my text box. And then I'm going to grab the white arrow and click on my line. And this is what I left off in the last video, but I can move this line around, but if I hit shift, it keeps it straight. So when something isn't straight, if I hit the shift key, it doesn't really necessarily always help me. So I want to move this line over here so it integrates, so I can release or remove these points here, and I could also just hit the delete key to remove them, not the delete key, the minus key, and that would do that. So this way, this line brings this over, and then this being stacked up here, I think what I'm going to do is I could either get rid of it, or it's kind of important information though, I am going to take it and put it on two lines. So I'm going to copy this space I have here so it's consistent and has that line in there. And I'm going to copy, and I'm going to delete this, grabbing the wrong box. Sometimes when you grab a line or a shape, you end up inadvertently making it a text box. So that line is asking me to put text in it, which is kind of crazy. All right, so there I have that. So now I'm going to play with moving things around so that that looks nice and aligned with this, so I can hit both of these and keep hitting that stupid line there. I'm going to lock that so it gets out of my way for a moment. So I can select both of these. I could use the alignment to make sure they're even. But one of the things I'm going to do as I move back and forth through this document is I am going to hit the W key on and off so I can see where things are aligning, okay? So it's interesting, I have this automatically is aligning at that 8.5 mark because it was started at 8.11. And I've got this line here, and I really want to keep this consistent, this part consistent on all the pages. So I am going to see where this is, and I am going to put in a guideline. So hit the W key, and I am going to drag a guideline. So it's dragging on the page above. I'm going to scoot this up so I can drag it to this page. And I am going to align everything with this right here. So I'm going to move this box over a bit, and then I am going to move this line over a bit. Remember, I locked it. That's the trouble with locking. So you hit unlock all unspread when you want to remove it. I'm going to move it over to a line here. I'm going to give this a little bit of breathing space. I'm going to send that to the back. Arrange, send to the back. Maybe that will help me. Move this over a little. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these items here, and actually I'm going to select this line too. So hot copy this. It doesn't let me grab that line with these. So I'm going to copy these boxes, and I am going to go over to my master page, click on my master page, and I am going to paste these right up here and align. That was up at the top. And then that guideline that I had over here, where did I have that guideline? I had it at 2 1/8. So I'm going to go back to 2 1/8, and I'm going to drag a new guideline so that lines up perfectly at 2 1/8. Now this is not as high as this because this is bigger and I want them to align on the baseline. So I could go and put a baseline in there, but basically with some things like this, you're just eyeballing it. So when I hit the W key, that's why I keep going back and forth hitting the W key. So now if I click down on this page, that information is here. So, and if I try to move it, it's locked for right now, okay? So this line that I had there, I'm going to decorate with that somewhere else. And then on this page, so where I had it, I can just go and grab that. I'm going to hold down the Shift key so I don't delete that line. So I can delete these parts right now because I don't need them to repeat, okay? So then the next thing I'm going to do is start looking at how this page aligns with the grid, and I'm going to hit W to show that. And so I'm going to start making sure. Now see the way this naturally actually fits in this grid pretty well. So that's just moving this over a hair. And then the thickness of this line is different than this one. And I think I'm going to split the difference here. So this line I have set at stroke. I have it set at 1. I'm going to make it 2. And this one that I have set at 4.6, blah, 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 I'm going to hit it to be 2. Okay. So one thing I want to show you is when you are in InDesign, if you want to resize something, so we have been in both Photoshop, it's kind of confusing. In Photoshop, when you want to resize something, you just grab it and you resize it, and it resizes it to the size you want. In Illustrator, we grab it and we hit Shift to keep it so that it doesn't distort. And I think that will end up changing the way Photoshop is in the next update. And in InDesign, it's completely different. You have to hit Command, Option, and Shift. Or if you're on a PC, Command, Alternate, and Shift. And hold those 3 together and then drag. Okay, so part of the reason that it works that way is because sometimes in InDesign you want to move your box and make your box bigger, because if I were to do that with this white direct selection tool, it goes and ends up moving the picture out of the way. At any rate, make sure you write that in your notes. It's Command, Option, and Shift, or Command, Alternate, Shift when you want to quickly resize something in InDesign. So I'm going to make this smaller, and so these grid lines that I have here, I am going to go and start playing with some things. This image here I'm going to flip because there's no writing in here. You have to be careful when you flip something that it doesn't, become nonsensical and not work anymore. And you can do that by hitting these keys here, or like you do in Illustrator, you can go into Transform and you can click on Flip Horizontal. Okay, so then I am going to line this up with the grid, hold those keys to make it bigger, and I'm going to start by putting it straight up in this grid, and I may end up adjusting that a little bit later. But we play around and put things in and then move them around, and hopefully you find that you're not moving things around too much, because just the way you naturally designed it will work. And then you can go and arrange something to bring to front, and I can move this picture over here instead if I like, and that still fits in that grid where the grid lines are. playing around with this. If I want to, I think I'm going to make a clipping path of this because this shape is very strong and I like the undulating curves in that, and it'll contrast the lines here. And then I want to show you too this chair here. So you can change the shape of something by going under Object, Convert Shape. So I can make this an ellipse. So when I click ellipse, it is, if you look up here, it is a perfect circle, and it is only a perfect circle because this started out being a perfect square. If this wasn't a perfect square, and I did that again, I go to Convert Shape and I make it an ellipse, I could just go and change break the link here, and I could make it bigger in one dimension, but I don't want to do that. Okay, and I'm going to lock that back up. Okay, so that is how, if you have something in a square or if it's in a circle and you want to make it rectangular, you can do that. And so what I am going to try to do is, it's probably not an accident that I had my resume having a line like this, and that when I was working on this mood board, that came out of looking at that piece of furniture. If you remember a couple weeks ago, there was that cabinet, it had these shapes, and I started tracing it. It's probably just something that I go to. I like stripes. You notice I'm wearing stripes all the time. So I just play with lines. So that's something that I do naturally. You're going to find out what you do naturally, and the way you've arranged your resume may mimic what you've already done on this page. Okay, I'm going to put this on hold for a moment. Okay, so we're back, and just like magic, it's all been put together. So here is my resume, and I added this image in here, and I thought it was a little off balance. It needed something, so I went and put this paragraph text in here in this line. When I was working on this page down here, I'm going to hit W so you can see where my grid is. I started to lay these different shapes in here, and then tweaked them so that they fit in the grid, but maybe not always. This one was close to the grid, so I made it fit in there. This one, you can see it's about a grid and a half width. This one, the same thing, grid and a little, maybe 3/4. But my text boxes, whoops, that slid over, but my text boxes are definitely within the grid. So I've got this text box here and this here, and if I hit the W key and I remove these for a moment, you can see that I tried to bring these things together, have them hold together, put a little bit of space in between them, but I'm consistent with how much space I have. I let this breathe and let the eye have a little bit of open moments, but not something that's too tense. You want to give it an out, and by having this come down and your eye can move around here, hopefully your eye does sort of a gentle movement and gets caught back up in this line. So when I had laid this out, I went and put my text box here naturally, and it fit in there, and then I took that same width, and it just sort of helps to anchor in here. So when I went up to here, you can guess that this text box is that same width, and it feels very methodical and mathematical, but it just, that grid, you just sort of double check in with that grid, and it helps to keep everything nice and consistent. And when I was playing with putting this shape in here, you see visually it lines up with the top. So if I'm trying to line up the box, that's not necessarily helpful here because it floats in this white space. Let me lift it up a little. It makes this visual line across here, and I wanted this to flow out on the side. So it's got this nice open space around here, and it felt too white, so I added this text in here, and this is just Lorem Ipsum text here. In here I was playing with layering and playing with this line so it didn't interrupt too much of what was going on, and then I added my text here, and again it lines up with that strong vertical that I've created that cuts through here. And then when we go down here, that vertical has been broken, but your eye still works because there's this open space in between there, and it brings your eye back around. And then I just took a sample from my pattern to fill in this space. So the other thing that I had done is I was playing with different colored lines. If you know, I started with green and then had orange.